Scott was the most polarizing figure in all of dirt racing, especially dirt Le Mans racing. All Scott did his whole career was showmanship. I mean, everything that he did and he embodied and was through his veins was a show. It's part of why he grew to the fame he grew to. So when you combine those two together, it was like a beautiful marriage. I mean, he literally embraced it from day one. I'll never forget talking to him about the event before it ever happened the first time. And I was really kind of blown away at how much he was like all about it. I think he saw what this was gonna be before we all did. Day one, he embraced it.
Fans yelling in a closed arena compared to an open, completely different. If you can damn near fill it up, I think it would be a really big monumental move for the sport.
I have a favorite Scott moment. In fact, I don't think I've ever told it, but it's year one, 2016. I don't really know Scott that well. We didn't know that the Dome driver introductions were gonna be what they were gonna be back in 2016. So this was a first time. I mean, most of the other introductions in 2016, you can go back and look, it was your standard, hey, how you doing? We're standing there in the tunnel and they're booing. The crowd is just booing. And I'll never forget, Michael Rigsby got on the radio and he said, let them do it, let them do it. And I'm like, I agree. Like, I'm like, let them do it. So we sat there for like 5 or 10 seconds, I think it was. It felt like way longer, and the fans in the whole building were just booing. And Scott was just like doing his nod, like, yep, you know you love me type of thing. And I looked over at him and I said, I'll give you $200 if you go out there and do the crotch chop. And he looked at me and said, shit, all right. Walks out there, goes to the X we have on the ground, and bam, he hits the crotch chops, flames go off. The entire building went from booing to ecstatic and screaming.
What do you think about that, St. Louis?
That's Scott. That's Scott. But what makes the story even better, he goes out there, dominates, wins the race, pulls up on our victory lane stage, and I do the standard, lean in the window as a promoter and say, thank you, awesome, congratulations. He literally pulls off his helmet and says, do you got my 200 bucks? I'm like, the guy just won 20 grand and he's wanting to make sure he's gonna get his 200 too. So that's why Scott was built for the Dome and the Dome was built for Scott. It was about the show. It really was, and it always was. The Rico driver intro, it was never supposed to be that way. We had a Harley. Scott was gonna come through the annex on a bike. I thought that'd be pretty cool. Scott loved it too, so that was the whole plan. We're 5 minutes before driver introductions and our vendor, the Harley-Davidson vendor, left. They left the building and everybody's like, where'd they go? What's going on? The story is that basically Scott had this grand idea and so they were yelling, Rico, he was sitting in the stands watching driver introductions and they were yelling for Rico to come down, like, yo, Rico, get down here. I don't know, I've never asked Rico this, but I don't think Rico even knew what he was getting into. I think he just was like, whatever, Scott needs me, so I'm gonna go. So he gets down there and clearly we know what the rest of the story is. You know, Rico comes out on his shoulders and it's one of the most epic driver intros of all time, if not the best. Again, Scott is a part of many moments with the Gateway Dirt Nationals, not even just his own, but others. I mean, you look at a guy like Jason Welshing comes out with a Scott Who sign and then backs it up with a no provisional needed like the next year. So, but it was all in fun. And what people knew, even other competitors like Jason, they knew that Scott was a part of the show, you know, and they wanted to be a part of the show because of that. So it's what made Scott, you know, who he was, and again, what made, you know, the Dome and him such a beautiful kind of marriage. The event has a special place for Scott, and certainly there's a special place in my heart for Scott. That'll live on forever. Those moments that Scott has, and for all of our fans and for the event, you know, he's truly gonna be missed, and he'll never be replaced.